this on for a while. You should be okay like that.
Okay.
I want to welcome everyone to the Learning Clinic on CKLU 96.7 FM. I'm your host, Bob Kirwan. And this afternoon on our show, we have a couple of guests that are really dealing with education. Kevin Cougler is the Executive Director of Partners in Research. He's going to be with me for the first hour. And we have Ryan Cooney, who is the Executive Director of Canadian Youth Golf Alliance. He's going to be with us at 1 o'clock. Kevin, my understanding is that Partners in Research is a registered charity. Been around for a while, since 1988, according to the internet. And your main role is to try and help Canadians understand more about the biomedical research and your interest in getting involved in the schools and education is to help people understand some of the careers in science, technology, engineering, math. So I'm going to try to let you give us the executive summary from the executive director of this Partners in Research program, because I know you're involved in a summer program up here in Sudbury as well that I want to talk about. So Kevin, what's the executive summary of the Partners in Research?
Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me to come and talk to you today, Bob. It's my pleasure to be here. I appreciate the offer. So Partners in Research was started in 1988, and it was kind of the dream child of a few prominent Canadians, Margaret Atwood, Ben Wicks, Pierre Burton.
Yeah, they're prominent.
And at the time, the presidents of the University of Western Ontario, University of Toronto, and the Toronto General Hospital. And what they were trying to do was to create an organization that would convey how health research is being conducted in Canada and get the information out there about why health research is important. And so over the years they created and developed several educational and academic programs to be able to accomplish that goal. And then a few years passed and they decided to broaden the mandate. And so the mandate of Partners in Research today is to try and find ways to stimulate the interest of students in the K-12 system about career opportunities that are available to them in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics fields. And to do that, we run several different academic programs, not the least of which is the summer camp here in Sudbury that you're alluding to.
So the careers in science, technology, engineering, math. I have a math background. I took my first year at University of Waterloo and graduated from Laurentian in math. And I did some tutoring through the Learning Clinic, and we found that the maths and the sciences in particular were, there's almost like a math anxiety and a science anxiety that's built into young people. And it seems to be that the people who tend to get into the careers that involve the maths and the sciences are, they find it easy. It's almost like they have natural talents in that field. It is part of your program or part of your mandate to try and encourage, I guess, the erosion of this anxiety or develop some interest in what some of the promising careers are?
Well, we don't target the anxiety
No.
in particular. It's kind of hard to do, but there are kind of subsets of that are interesting phenomena that we have to deal with and we come across. For instance, traditionally for decades it's been hard to get girls interested in science in particular.
Right.
Even though of course there's thousands of women across Canada that are in science careers in one form or another. But we find, especially in the younger grades, that girls are just as interested in science as boys. But something happens once they get to an older age, grade 8, grade 9, into high school, where boys, for some reason, are more drawn to the sciences than the girls. I don't know what the reason for that is, and I'm not sure anybody really does, but something happens along the way that says, you know, either convinces girls that they can't do it, or it's not appealing to them, or what it is, but we don't try and solve those situations. What we try and do is create an environment where girls and boys and their teachers can bring experts into the classroom live through video conferencing. And hopefully through that interaction with some of our most renowned scientists across Canada, that those interests are re-sparked, if you will, or just re-energized. And in our wildest dreams, if there's a young lady out there who's 14, 15 years old, and you know, they get to talk to somebody like Julie, you know, Payette, who's a Canadian astronaut, and somehow that gets her excited into engineering or science, then you know, we've accomplished part of our goal.
The medical field, biomedicine, what is it about the field that for whatever reason, seems to maybe not appeal to females? Because it is, my nephew's wife is in the biomedical field down at St. Michael's Hospital, and she's coming up to Laurentian Hospital for a while. And, I mean, I can't even describe what it is that she's doing, but she's kind of like put it this way, that she will be the only one in Northern Ontario in her field.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a research for microbiology for diseases and things like this. And it takes a long time to get qualified, but anyone who's going through the program, you've got a career that is guaranteed. It's just that they can't fill those spots. Are you finding that is happening with the engineering, the technology, and the sciences?
Well, we don't really get into those metrics too much, to be honest with you. We know that there are definitely gaps that occur, and you know, why are some areas needing more women than other areas? Don't really know the answer to that, to be honest with you.
I'm finding they're needing males too.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's a shortage in this field, isn't it?
There is a shortage, and there's gonna be a shortage for some time until we get more students that are entered into these. I mean, when you have places like, you know, Synovus out in Alberta, you know, who are crying for power engineers to come and work for them. You know, they come to Ontario, they come to all provinces in Canada to try and, you know, encourage kids to go into those engineering fields because they have a shortage. The Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, SAIT, has a partnership with oil companies in Alberta, specifically so that they can target students that are within those institutions to try and encourage them to go into those careers. So there is a huge shortage.
Wow, and an engineering training program takes, what, 4 years, doesn't it?
I would think so,
You've
at least.
gotta have, what, 4 years before you get your actual certification? You've gotta be working with people?
Yeah.
So even finding people who are time to mentor and coach the new graduates must be tough.
It's challenging, and that's one of the areas, that's one of the ways that we can help too, is with the mentoring. Some of our programs, you know, we can have an engineering mentor who will work with a class for an entire semester or an entire year. Good example is the Canada Robotics Challenge. It takes place, it's late winter or early spring, if I'm not mistaken, every year. And we've had mentors who are engineers who work with the kids and answer questions on how to build robots and things of that nature. And from there, you know, those students can they're either in a robotics club or it's part of their curricula at the school level. And from there, they can build their own robots and go into the Canada Robotics Challenge. So that's kind of one of the roles that we can play is that mentoring role.
So you're experts. I'm really interested with the experts that are used in the video conferences. You've got quite a few of them in your resource space, don't you?
Yes. Yeah, we have a few hundred.
A few hundred.
Toolkit, yeah. They're hard to get.
It sounds like you've accumulated quite a group, though.
Yeah.
What do they do? Let's suppose a classroom teacher wanted to discuss a particular topic, and they wanted to have someone video conference to share their experience and kind of motivate the class in this particular topic, what would happen? What would they do?
There's a few ways that they can participate. First way is, let's say you have a teacher out there who, just wants some information on what it's like to be a civil engineer.
Okay.
Use as an example. So they would call our office or access our website, and they would put in a request. And they would say, on this day, at this time, in this official language, because we do both French and English, we would like a civil engineer to come into our classroom virtually and talk to the kids about what it's like to be a civil engineer. And we would make that happen. So what does that mean, we would make it happen? Sounds great, but there's an awful lot of work that has to happen on the back end in order for that to take place. So first of all, we have to have the civil engineers in our database. So who do we partner with, to find civil engineers? Well, there's a lot of them at universities.
Yeah.
So we partner with a lot of universities across Ontario and Alberta. And we have civil engineers then that we've gone in person, sat down with, and told our story and what we're trying to accomplish, and they've agreed to volunteer their time, so they now appear in our database. The next step is we have to make sure they can technically participate. So they have to have some type of a solution that allows them to virtually connect with the classroom. So just to make that easy, we have our own technological infrastructure that we provide at no cost to any expert who wants to participate in the program. So it's kind of like a Skype connection, only it's a little higher advanced than Skype.
And more of a private connection, I guess?
That's right, yeah. It's kind of I don't know how technical you want to get, but not too much, okay?
Well, no, feel free.
Well, it goes into the world of video conferencing, and so, the standard is called H323 or SIP, so they have to be H.323 compliant or SIP compliant. And it's just a fancy way of saying that if you have one brand of video conferencing unit and I have another brand of a video conferencing unit, we can both talk to each other. So it doesn't matter who makes it,
Okay.
the standard is inside and we can talk. It's kind of like how a Toshiba laptop can talk to a Dell laptop, same type of idea. So then we have to make sure that the IT departments of those institutions will allow that video conferencing connection to take place. So we have to do a lot of testing and sometimes some working with those departments to ensure that that happens. Once we do that, then we bring the expert, in this case the civil engineer, together with the teacher, and we have a little conversation and we say, okay, what are you trying to accomplish in your classroom? Is it just a half an hour or 40 minutes to bombard the engineer with some questions, or does it tie to curriculum in some way? So do you need the engineer to come up with some slides about what it is that they do and appropriate for that grade level? That's where we kind of step out of it at that point, Bob, because we're not pedagogical experts or education experts. So we allow that communication to happen, and we bring those two parties together. And from there, they figure out what's going to work best in the classroom. Because every classroom, of course, is unique.
So it's really a collaborative planning approach between the teacher and the expert.
Absolutely.
Very much like you would do if you had can't say if you had a live person in a classroom, because the person is virtually live.
Yes.
They're coming in as a video conference, but very much as if you had a person coming into your room and you were going to be planning the lesson, what you wanted to accomplish. That's a little bit different than what most guest speakers do, because most of the time you book someone to come into the class, they come in, they speak to the class, and I know as a teacher, former teacher, you're really not sure what they're going to be saying.
Mm-hmm. And
You
you're not
give
sure.
them a topic.
That's right. Or if it's going to be appropriate for that age level.
Right, it's kind of like you're listening and you don't have a 7-second delay. So this really means that there's a real objective and goal to the lesson. It sounds like there is a lot of work though, there's a lot of preparation. So I guess once you get a school connected the first time and they allow that video conference to take place, then it must be also set for any other teacher that in that school that wants to use the same.
It is.
protocols.
Absolutely. Yeah, we, but of course, we're stuck with the STEM subjects.
Right.
I shouldn't say stuck with, we're not stuck
Oh,
with
those
them,
are
we
pretty-
embrace them.
Pretty important subjects, yeah.
Yeah, so,
Those are subjects that you have to dig to find good resources on.
that's right, yeah, and that is a challenge. So, I mean, we, now sometimes we do some subject matters that go outside of those areas.
I was a math major. I don't think there's any subject area that is not connected to math.
Exactly, yeah, so you get
Or
it.
science.
Yeah, you get it.
Is that what you do?
Yeah, and, you know, a lot of times, you know, you talk about, you know, going from one teacher to the rest of the class, or the rest of the school, if you will.
Right.
And that is really part of the secret, because, you know, teachers have X amount of time in the day, right? And they don't have anything more than that.
No.
So it's completely different when they get an email saying, hey, we've got the greatest program since sliced bread, why don't you take part in this?
Yeah, sure.
You know, whereas, you know, Bob, you teach
Yeah.
next door to me, and you come over and say, hey, I just did this yesterday, and this is really cool,
Yeah.
give it a try.
You gotta try it.
Yeah, and that's, so you'll find schools that have a ton of engagement, because it had some success
Yeah.
stories, and then you'll have schools that have zero engagement, because
Right.
no one's taken a flyer on it yet.
You gotta penetrate.
Yeah,
And you only have to penetrate with one classroom,
Exactly.
really,
that's exactly
for
right.
it to happen. Yeah, that's good. No, it really, like this becomes an excellent resource then, and I guess when a person goes to your website, they can see the variety of experts and topics that are available. So
Yes,
that
they
they
do.
have an idea of whether you can address their particular concerns, and then it's just a matter of making connection and saying, this is what I'm looking for, is someone available?
Exactly, and it looks different everywhere. Like, to use an example that's unique to Laurentian University, so there's a researcher here by the name of Dr. David Lisbury, and David is francophone, but he is a mentor for a grade 6, 7, 8 class up in Iqaluit,
Okay.
and he's been doing this all semester. So in this particular case, it's not as much tied to the curriculum as it is trying to create experiences for these students to give them a reason to come to school. Because they have a big challenge up in Nunavut, and the big
Right.
challenge is that, you know, they have other things to do, and there's some cultural sensitivities and some social, you know, problems that occur, and one of the biggest ones is they just can't get kids to school. So David has been phenomenal. The very first one I watched, though, had nothing to do with education. It was, hi, my name's David, I'm a frog expert, this is what I do. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he showed a few frogs on camera. And it was magical, because the students on the other end, well, they don't have frogs up there.
Oh, okay.
Frogs don't exist in the Arctic.
I guess they would.
At least there. So I think, and one of my my staff was telling me this morning the story of that first session, and they were saying that, you know, David had said, well, just go down to your local pond, you know, next time, and pull out a frog and tell me a little bit about it. And they said, well, we don't have that. So, you know, so it wasn't just him teaching them, they were teaching him
Yeah.
about their climate. And so then the conversation morphed into, you know, what's nature like there, what are the animals that are unique to the Arctic, and so we had this cross-cultural exchange, if you will.
Yeah.
And so David has done that, I believe, for six sessions over the past year with that particular class. So it's just great, because the kids look forward to it, you know, they get to know the expert on the other end, and at the same time, there's some education that's happening as well.
No, I think it's great, and the thing is, you have access to these guest speakers who really only have to take half an hour to an hour out of their day
Yeah,
in order to do this.
yeah, and they could do it over the internet.
Yeah.
Imagine if you had to throw them on an airplane.
Yeah, and it was, and
25
that's
hours.
it's always been the drawback in getting these experts to come into the classrooms, because for a person to come in and do one presentation, they're giving up an entire morning.
Yeah.
And in many cases, they're strapped for time as well. So.
It'd be a hard sell for the university too, right?
Right.
We wanna send 10 of our researchers to the Arctic to talk to one class, it's
Yeah.
gonna cost you $50,000 to
Yeah.
do it. Pretty tough.
Yeah. This must be a trend that more and more people are starting to use, as opposed to the old-fashioned day of going out and spending your day in a school and talking live.
I'll tell you, I think it is a trend. I think we're at the forefront of it. I think we're helping to lead the trend. There are other organizations in the world that do it. I think there's one in, I think it's Switzerland or Sweden, called Kirwan. They're fairly well adopted in that environment. In the United States, there's another organization called the CILC. In Canada, there's basically us. There's
I was gonna say, you
Yeah.
don't have a whole long list
no, I
of people
mean,
that are doing that.
they're called content providers, and there are museums out there that do offer, you know, 1 hour, you know, kind of a lecture. Science North is also getting involved in it as well. I had breakfast this morning with Nicole Chasson, and she's one of the program directors there, and they're doing a little bit in this space as well. But I think, are kind of unique in that we're able to pull expertise from a wide variety of sources, whereas all of the rest of them are just pulling it from their own institutions. So we definitely have a role to play here. But, there was a story that I wanted to tell you here. Oh, yes. So you talked about, it being widely adopted in the classroom. So just to give you an example of how far we've come using myself as a guinea pig. So in 1985, I was in grade 9, and that's kind of at the time when HIV/AIDS was just starting to come out in the world and be a little more well known. And I come from a small town called Norwich, which is population 1,700 if you count the cows, right? It's pretty small. And I was asked to do this science project on this new disease, and I didn't know where to go for information because I went down to my school library and there was nothing there. So now what do I do? Well, nobody in the school knows anything about it.
Why didn't you just Google it?
Why didn't I Google it? Exactly. Well, thank you for dating me, Bob. There was no Google. So, what do you do? Well, my parents got in the car and we drove to the nearest city library, which was 30 minutes away up in Woodstock, just for one school project. And even then, there weren't any textbooks on this yet.
No.
You had to search the periodicals and microfiche. And remember those days?
Yeah.
So, and I was able to get some information that way. But think about how far we've come. So that was my experience. And now, all the kids have to do is look at their computer. Sure, they can Google it. But if they go to our website, they can instantly connect to that person who's doing cutting-edge research on HIV/AIDS. So it's transforming the way we learn in the classroom, as you say. Absolutely.
Now, when they instantly connect, are there video archives? There's videos that are on the site too. It's not just the live conferencing, right?
That's right. There's dynamic and static content.
Okay.
So if they happen to catch, these are busy people. So there's sometimes it happens where the researcher is in their lab actually doing research. How dare they?
Mhm.
They should be talking to students all day
Waiting
long,
by
right?
phone.
Yeah.
Right.
But if that happens, they can send through a request and set up a mutually convenient time, or they can access our video archive, UROC video, and quite often there'll be a video there that answers some questions as well.
Well, and then you're also now touching on this video, virtual researcher on call, this video on demand. It seems as if there's a real, and it's a fast movement. It's not a slow movement like it used to happen in the 80s and
Yeah.
90s. Like things happen very quickly.
Yeah.
That we've got to this generation, and I don't even like to say it's the younger generation, because I think the older you get, the more quickly you want things to happen too. Because you know that your hourglass is starting to run out. And so I don't talk in terms of 10-year plans in my lifestyle. I was like, 3 or 4 year plan is a long-term plan for me. And so I feel that even when I'm getting into my age bracket, baby boomers, we are so connected, and so we identify so much with the younger generation that wants everything now, that I don't even think that this is a youth phenomenon. I think this whole idea of, I want to be able to access this information, I want to be able to get it in an educational format so that I can understand it, and if it's being addressed to elementary and secondary schools, it's going to be understood by everybody. I know that this is true because in the past I've done publications on golf and hockey and very simple publications, and nothing complex, nothing like the magazines, but they were on local golfers in the Sudbury area. And I used to tell people that, yes, the publication I put out was black and white, and it was tabloid, and you would get ink on it. But it doesn't matter if you're Arnold Palmer or Tiger Woods or a person who plays once a week. If it's about golf and you're passionate about golf, you're going to read it.
Mm.
And so if you're addressing a topic that is at a level that is understood by students in their elementary and high school area, the experts are going to read this as well. And they're going to, yes, they're going to have a clearer understanding, but it just means that it's confirming the importance of what they've been studying, because quite often the more expert you get in a particular topic, you start to forget what it was like before you were such an expert, and just refreshing some of these concepts gives you better insight into how most people are viewing your topic. I think this video, this researcher on call is great. The opportunity to video conference with an expert will have that appeal to a classroom because it's different. And it's still different enough to this generation that it is unique. 5 years from now, having a person come on conference to you may not be as exciting because it's commonplace. That's when you're probably gonna get into your, what's the term for it? These actual 3D images, holographs.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Being like, which I know that they can do now. So I mean, where you are right now is such appeal, it has such an appeal to the education community that it just seems like the potential for growth is exponential. How can you do this? What's the next step? Because
Well,
you can't, you're not gonna be able to receive, as more and more people get accustomed to the resource, there's gonna be more of a demand on the people at the central office to make all the arrangements to put people together.
yeah, that's a great point. And we are a small charity, as you know, so we only have X number of people and limited resources to be able to pull it off. We try and scale growth, as our first answer to that question.
And that's tough in this generation,
Oh,
scale
boy,
growth.
yeah, because there's no boundaries anymore.
No.
There's no geographical boundaries,
No.
you know?
Where's the furthest request you've had for a conference?
Well, we're doing something in Dakar
Yeah, I
right now.
figured you wouldn't be just on the side of the,
Yeah.
The
So, but, you know, as a Canadian charity, right now, we're able to limit, you know, our engagement, so, we don't really have a mandate that goes beyond Canada, so anything we do outside of Canada, we have to run as a pilot project, so we do one school in Dakar, just to see what it's like.
Mhm.
You know, what are some of the challenges about going transcontinental, or, we're not sure, but we're working with that right now. But even within Canada, I mean, what's the population, 35 million or something like that? I mean, I know it's the size of California, but it's a big country.
yeah.
So there's a heck of a lot of students here, so how do we reach them all? Well, quite frankly, we cap growth, so we try and do it province by province. So we started in Ontario, and it's free for the schools, everybody in Ontario. Not everybody is using it, of course, so what would happen tomorrow if all of the teachers called us and they bring our program to a standstill,
Right.
quite frankly. Nice problem to have, but yeah, that's what would happen. And, you know, and so then we moved into Alberta. So every time we move into a province, we have to go and we have to talk to some key people to find out, okay, can we grow this in 3 separate silos? So we have our research community supported by the colleges and universities, they're the ones with the content. Will the K-12 system support it? They're the ones that, you know, have to say that they want it in order for this to work.
Right.
And, you know, technology, do we have some strong technology partners behind us that will help us grow our infrastructure at the same time to support this? And so far, we've been able to manage it. But to your point, absolutely, if I started getting calls from teachers all across the country, we would have to limit connections, you know, based on funding in those regions.
Or come up with a different way.
Yeah, I mean, we've had some calls in BC, and we're able to engage some teachers in BC right now, but we're not quote unquote out there in British Columbia as a province that we're actively working in. We do a few pilot projects there.
Yeah.
That's about it.
I've had a career in education, and I'm a school board trustee right now, and there's this tipping point where at some particular point it grows, you know, a few teachers here and a few teachers there, and maybe 1 school, 2 schools, 3 schools. But when it gets to a certain point, it spills over now into the entire system.
Yeah.
And once it reaches that tipping point, it will be exponential. And now that could happen in a number of cities at the same time.
Yeah.
And so it's I mean, it is one of those things that I think all businesses today have to hopefully be ready to deal with it. Like you say, it's a nice problem unless it gets so overwhelming that you can't meet the demands, and then everything implodes on itself again because
Absolutely.
they can't get what they're looking for. So, very nice problem. The STEM program, the STEM camp, is something that you also do with partners in research. Can you explain a little bit more of that STEM camp, because there's one here in Sudbury, isn't there?
Yeah, it's first time in Sudbury, that's why we're here this weekend, we're promoting it. This originated, I remember my director of special projects, Brent Peltzela, and I were in Alberta, and we were on I think it was a tour, we were talking to the universities and getting them to join the program, and